Hello, everyone, and welcome for our weekly Educational Monday program. Today, I'm so excited to introduce our special guest here, Yocheved, and she is a life coach, and I'll let you introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Olga, for giving me the honor to be on this wonderful podcast. So I am a life coach, but primary job is a physician assistant. I work in healthcare. I see patients 5 days a week, and I'm also a motivational speaker. I have a podcast as well, primarily on Facebook. And I'm so excited to have this opportunity to have this talk with you today.
Yes, that makes the two of us. So thank you so much. Today, I'm focusing on a topic that has to do with self-compassion and personal growth. So I want to start by asking you, can you explain what self-compassion is and why is it so important?
So for me personally, I think the way I would define self-compassion, it's the ability to love yourself and be kind to yourself the way you would be to, let's say, a friend called you and she was having a rough time and she was facing some sort of challenges, or she was uncertain about something and she was being hard on herself. And then you like set her on track and you tell her, hey, don't worry, take it easy. Not everything comes at once. It's the ability to give that kind advice to yourself the way you would to someone else. It's the ability not to judge yourself harshly. It's the ability to give yourself that self-love and, understand that you are great no matter what the outcome of a circumstance is. To me, that's how I would define self-compassion.
That's a great explanation. I actually found in my own practice, my own experience, that self-compassion really allows me to recover from setbacks much quicker. And it's having that internal support system, right? We're not all having that external support system. So having that internal support system helps me stay grounded and motivated. Self-compassion, I think, helps us maintain balance, perspective, and even avoid the negative spiral of self-criticism.
Exactly, right.
What are some common misconceptions about self-compassion?
Well, people may feel that if you're overly, like nice to yourself and say, it's gonna get done, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. And you give yourself that beautiful pat on the back, sometimes you won't be motivated. And some people feel that I don't want to be so easy on myself because I have to stay focused. I have to have that, I need to know what my end result should be. And sometimes we feel like if we're self-critical and we're harsh on ourselves, that's what's going to keep us pushing. But in reality, it's the opposite. If we become self-critical and we're judging ourselves too harshly, that's actually going to set us back.
Right.
So it's actually the opposite. It's not that people feel like we may lose motivation. Actually, it's the opposite. If you're very loving and kind to yourself, you give yourself the ability and strength to keep pushing forward.
Right. And I came across people who fear from being kind to themselves because that would make them maybe lazy and unproductive. Right. So in my experience, self-compassion made me more resilient, more persistent, more pursuing my goals because I'm not wasting energy on self-criticism. And when we are compassionate with ourselves, we create a positive environment that encourages growth and improvement. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like you see, criticism is only good if it's constructive and it's there to teach us some sort of a lesson. Like, for example, if we're on this podcast right now and then we rewatch it and we find certain things that maybe I should have answered this differently or I should have focused on something differently, and you give yourself little tips and notes on how you would do something better for the future and what mistakes you might have had, but you're not coming to a point of negativity. You're not sitting there dwelling and thinking and overthinking. Then it becomes something positive. So constructive criticism can also be self-compassionate
Right.
because you're actually looking for a way to improvise, looking for a way to get better for next time. And self-growth is very important. So even though we find criticism to be something negative, if it's done properly, and we're not doing it and see, our inner dialogue can also be screaming to us, as to say, you know, like sometimes we yell at ourselves internally, or we can be very kind to ourselves, talk to ourselves with loving words, talk to ourselves nicely. So if you really tell yourself, you know, dear, you could have done this better,
Yeah.
or if it wasn't bad, it was great, but maybe you would have done this better, then it becomes a good form of criticism. And that can also be self-compassionate, because it's, you're looking out for yourself to do something better next time.
So it makes me think that a lot of people would confuse self-compassion with self-pity, right? Because they would think it's a form of weakness. But in reality, when you have self-compassion, you're really acknowledging your pain rather than dwelling on the pain.
You know, I think another form of self-compassion is avoiding comparisons.
Yeah.
In the world of social media, where everything is out there, we sometimes compare ourselves to other people.
True.
And that's not self-compassion, because you're allowing yourself to look at other people's gifts, and then you're saying to yourself, well, I'm not good enough, but your gifts are different than this person's gifts. So if you want to feel self-compassionate to yourself, sometimes it helps if you're the type of person that can look at someone else and compare yourself in a way of, like, just like that, constructively, and say, well, I want to learn and strive to be like that person because that person motivates me. That's great. But if you look at other people and their strength in a way of putting yourself down, that's a way to maybe unfollow or not look at those people, or maybe get off social media for some time. And that can also be a form of self-compassion, because self-compassion means I'm doing something for me, my health, and my mental well-being. So whatever steps need to be taken for that is being compassionate to yourself. It's showing yourself that you matter.
Absolutely. So how can someone start practicing self-compassion in daily life?
I think you can start off by journaling and writing yourself, having a little journal,
Right.
where you start with gratitude and mindfulness. And you tell yourself what you really love about yourself, what you love about your life, what you love about your strengths, what you love about your children, your spouse, your career. Once you start looking at everything in a positive way, you're no longer pitying yourself, because you just see how blessed you really are. So I think journaling and putting things on paper. The second thing you could do is going outside and having conversations with yourself. You see, sometimes we have this myth that we have to talk to other people to give us a self boost, to give us encouragement. We look for people's, you know, compliments and feedback. And you learn how to be your own best friend, how to be okay with your own company, how
Correct.
to be okay complimenting yourself and having those conversations with yourself. That too is a form of self-compassion, because you are happy with yourself. When you look in the mirror and you learn that I'm great, I'm wonderful, and that makes you in turn walk into a room, you know, like you can be like, I always give this comparison. You can have one person wearing the same outfit, they could be the same size, but one person will wear it better. Why will the person wear it better? Because they're going to walk into a room with so much self-confidence, and they're almost like they're confident in their own skin. That is also a form of self-compassion, because you're not looking for somebody to tell you that looks great on you. You're looking into a room almost like making a statement. I look good, I feel good, and I'm not here for anybody but myself. When you have that type of mentality, you're being kind to yourself, because you're giving your mind a positive outlook, and all those chemicals in the brain that are being released at that moment are good. They're allowing you not to feel depressed and worried and stressed. And when you have that kind of mindset, then any goal you set yourself, you're going to be able to achieve it, because you're going to do it with love and not with resentment, not with feeling this negativity, not with putting yourself down. So that's a way of feeling good about yourself.
Oh, I love those examples. I do want to reflect back because you said journaling. I personally find journaling very, very helpful. And you also mentioned gratitude. In my center, I do the 28 Gratitude Challenge. If you've heard of that, if not, then I'll enlighten you. There's a book that's called The Magic by Rhonda Bear. Have you ever got
Uh-huh.
across that book? I always reflect
No.
to that book. It's a book of, and that's what this magic challenge in my center is. We follow the book. It's a 28-day challenge of gratitude where you really reflect on the little things that you're grateful for. You start with the 10 things that you're grateful for in your own inner circle. Then you find a person that you're grateful for. Then you put like a rock that you, every time you see that rock, it reminds you that you have to say grateful things. But it's like, and in my own household, we have this practice every Shabbat dinner when we sit Friday dinner around the table, we each say the 3 different things you're grateful for this week. And I think
Wow.
when you are practicing gratitude, like you said, when you are grateful, God gives you so much more to be grateful for. And that's
Yes.
really the beginning of journaling. Now, on the other side, journaling doesn't always have to be just gratitude. Gratitude is a great way, but I find writing down moments of self-criticism when you are thinking about self-criticism, or when you rewriting them in a different perspective, when you read whatever you wrote with self-criticism and rewrite it for yourself with self-compassion, that could be very, very powerful. If you know
You
any,
know, that makes that example, I just thought of something as you're saying it. It's almost
sure,
like when you're journaling, let's say you lashed out on your child and you really lost it and you felt like, oh, I wish I didn't speak to my child that way. I wish I didn't have to overreact. And you write that on your journal. Today, I really raised my voice and I shouldn't have at this and this moment. And then you become a little, and then you write the other way around and you say you're a mother and you're
right.
overwhelmed and you have so much on your plate. And tomorrow is going to be a better day. Tomorrow you're going to react this way. Maybe you're going to apologize to your
Right.
child for the way you lashed out. Like you said, I think that gives me an example of journaling that episode as well, because that's a different perspective that sometimes we want to be the best version of ourselves. And there are moments where we just simply can't be. And then we are compassionate to ourselves and journaling that this is what happened. This is why it happened, because I'm overworked or I feel
Right.
very tired or I just have so much on my plate. So
Yeah.
you're being compassionate to yourself. And then the third step is, what will you do next time to not let that happen again?
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of a book by Rachel Hollis. I'm a big reader. I read everything and anything. She has a book that says, "Girls, stop apologizing." And
Oh,
it's a
okay.
very profound book, great, great examples. And one of the things she talks about is exactly that, self-compassion. And if you are experiencing something that you are judging yourself for, just write it down and then reread it. And you'll see how, you're really over judging yourself. Rewrite this, then exactly what we're talking about. So if you are into reading, definitely
I
read
think I
that
need
book.
to pick up that book and start reading it. Sounds very interesting.
Amazing. It teaches you on how you have to stop judging yourself. You're a mother, and yes, you want to do certain things, but you have to give yourself some grace on what you are actually trying to achieve. So that's definitely a great choice. Now, also in a dialogue, you said step outside and talk about it. In our religion, it's called hitbodedut,
Mhm.
right? It's when you put yourself in a place where you actually talk to divine, whatever that God may be, the higher entity, the higher energy, whatever religion everyone believes in. You just basically talk to that higher self. And you notice that when you are doing that and you're being self-criticism, you're basically gently shifted towards a more compassionate voice, because now you have to present this case in front of a higher entity, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right? So practice this. It's a great practice for anyone, for any religion. Just simply practicing, put your hand on your heart and really say kind things to yourself. It makes such a big difference when you are being kind to yourself. Mindfulness, meditation, and that really grows and very helpful for self-compassion. Um,
I feel like some people, and I don't know if you could answer it or not, feel like they can't do meditation because in order to meditate, you have to like put yourself in a certain state of mind. You have to kind of, release everything. What would be some suggestions that you can give someone who has trouble with meditating?
Right. So actually, it's something I have done a few months ago. There's a whole workshop, a whole month, I think, on meditation. It's very hard. Some people really cannot meditate, and that's right. Their mind is racing so much. So one of the most helpful strategies that I suggest is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. When you learn to breathe, and I will reiterate on that, when you learn to breathe and actually ignore everything around you, that brings you into that mindset. So the 4-7-8 technique, for example, is when you breathe in to count of 4, you pause for a count of 7, and then you breathe out to a count of 8. That actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is we have the fight and flight. So when your exhale is longer than your inhale, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And if you do that 3 times in a row, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
I'll send you my link to listen because there's so many different techniques. But that technique, when you do it 3 times in a row, it brings you to this calmness. Your brain just stops racing with all those thoughts. And we all have those thoughts. We all have those moments where we think endlessly. That brings you to this calmness. And the biggest thing that I can tell anyone who's starting meditation doesn't have to be half hour. You can start with 2 minutes, then you increase it to 3 minutes, then you increase it to 5 minutes. And really, those little steps will get you towards whatever goal you want. So don't put yourself into, I don't have time for meditation, or that takes too long. I can't have my 2 minutes. Sometimes is actually much better than a half hour.
That's true. It's like exercising. You
Yeah.
know, the first time I remember going back to the gym and I'm like dreading it. Oh, I can't do this. And I thought 5, 10 minutes on the treadmill, I was already so victorious. And then I kept building up and building up and building up. And now I look back and I say, I thought 5 minutes was good enough, you know? So you're absolutely right. You know,
So
it
again,
starts off with those few minutes at a time and you gradually build up.
yeah, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey talks about this. Says that the small steps are so important. Start small and then you build up that slowly. So can you give maybe specific exercises or techniques that our listeners can try at home for self-compassion?
I think it's good to make time for yourself. For example, manicures, you know, going, making like a self date, right? Or scheduling a date with a friend. Anything that you give yourself, like it's you time. When you realize that you're so busy, you're juggling, you have so much on your plate, and you're able to stop and say, I matter, I'm important. And going out to the salon, getting your hair done, getting your nails done. And it doesn't even have to be like for anybody who's struggling and they're in a budget and they feel like they can't afford those things. You can even get yourself, you know, nail polish and come home in your own bathroom and just make it like a little spa for yourself. So when you make time for yourself, that's a form of self-compassion. That's you letting your mind know, I matter, I'm important. Um, I feel like also putting out little post-it notes all over your, you know, in your kitchen and in areas where you could see with friendly reminders, you know, with quotes, with pictures of yourself when you were, you know, in the, like if you went on vacation and you put pictures of yourself in those moments and you realize, wow, I really matter. I had such a good time. I am surrounded by my family members or my best friends. So I think anything that you do that puts yourself first is a form of self-compassion. Now, that doesn't mean that you're selfish. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're self-centered. It just means that you realize that you are important. And when you start making yourself feel important, that automatically will give you a sense of, I can do everything and anything I put my mind to because I have it in me. You see, one of the things that prevents people from achieving their goal or from being the best version of themselves is when they're in a state of mind full of anxiety, depression, worry, because that basically, that negative voice inside is going to take away from what you really can do and who you really are. So when you're practicing self-compassion and you're making sure you're always reminding yourself that it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay not to be perfect, it's okay to sometimes not being able to accomplish everything because you're human and you're not meant to know everything and you're not meant to have an answer for everything. That allows you not to be overly critical. That allows you not to judge yourself harshly. And that also allows you that when other influences outside are going to call you and give you some negative feedback, you're not going to internalize it so much because you've been so busy allowing yourself to know how great and wonderful you are that you put a boundary. So when somebody gives you a negative feedback, you're not going to internalize it. You're going to have that wall and say, hold on, is it really true what this person is telling me? Is this accurate information? And that's a perception of what they think because I think differently about myself. And that is going to, because you're not going to be dependent on other people to tell you how good you are because you've been practicing it every single day, reminding yourself how good and valuable you are.
Right. Essentially, it's okay to acknowledge your own feeling without actually judging. Right. The judgment. There is a practical thing that I do whenever I deal with difficult situations. It's 3 steps that I always follow. The first thing is I acknowledge my suffering because we all have moments where we actually suffer, and that's okay not to put it under the rug, but actually acknowledge it. And the way I acknowledge it is I say with a phrase, this is really hard right now. This is really something that I'm dealing with and I have to deal with it. So that's step one, acknowledge it. Step number 2, recognize that suffering is part of human being. It's everybody goes through something. I'm not alone. And that's what I say. I'm not alone. Others feel this way too, or others go through something like this or worse. And then step number 3, offer yourself kindness. I say something like, may I be kind to myself at this moment? Or like you said, I'm going to go and do my nails or go to a store and just wander around and try new things because this really helps mindset towards your self-compassion and bring that suffering to a different level, not dwell on the suffering and bring more suffering upon.
Right. I love that.
Right.
I think, shopping, for example, is so therapeutic. And sometimes
Absolutely.
that can be a form of self-compassion too. Not waiting for somebody to give you a gift. Go buy yourself a gift. Go get yourself the flowers. Don't wait for someone to do it for you. And that's what makes you happy. Go ahead and buy it for yourself.
And I do that every Friday. Every Friday I walk to Trader Joe, and if you haven't done this, you should do that. Trader Joe has a great selection, and I
Yes,
just
I do
buy
love it.
I have flowers in every room for Friday, and we just
Wow.
this is amazing. This is what makes your mood elevated, makes your happiness not be dependent on other people. Happiness is within us. It's what we do for
Right.
ourselves. So how does self-compassion relates to your overall mental health? Does it even relate to any?
Absolutely. Like I said before, it reduces anxiety.
Right.
It reduces depression because you're always working on better moods. Because if you're kind to yourself and loving to yourself, you're going to avoid sitting in a room and, judging yourself harshly, worrying so much, stressing about things that don't really matter because you've been so busy telling yourself and journaling and saying, hey, I overreacted. I maybe I shouldn't have done something, but I'm overworked and next time I'll do better. And you're so busy all week long being so kind to yourself and empathetic to yourself that is going to avoid that unnecessary worry, depression, anxiety. Is going to uplift your mood. It's going to make you happy. And there's so much that people would pay for, therapists and life coaches, just to give them back their happiness. So imagine if you can do it to yourself, where you're always working on your own happiness, you're not going to have to need and require outside influences to make you happy. So I think it really 100% has an effect on your mental well-being. You also create a healthier perception of yourself, where you're going to feel that it's okay. Even if you're not going to reach a certain milestone by a certain time, you're going to be healthy about it. You're going to say, you know what, maybe people will achieve A, B, C, D by the time they're 30. That doesn't mean it's my pattern of life. There is no time frame in for me because I have to achieve it for whenever I'm ready or whenever I have the circumstances or the abilities. Maybe I can't buy a house right now. So I'll be compassionate to myself. Maybe my financial state is different. So what if my friends achieved it? If it's meant to be mine, it's going to be mine. And if it's not meant to be mine, so be it. I have a roof over my head. I have what to eat. My house is warm. That's it. You're grateful. And when you're grateful for what you have, you're going to be compassionate even when you don't reach the next step right now.
That makes a lot of sense. I've noticed that when I practice self-compassion, I'm so much better dealing or handling stress and recover from different setbacks. It's like having a buffer against your ups and downs in life, right? It provides you that stable foundation of emotional health, which I think is so important for everyone. Are there any challenges that people might face when they're trying to practice self-compassion? And how can they overcome this?
Are there any challenges? I think that if you are raised in a family where people were very critical of themselves or negative, and you always heard people being so negative about themselves, criticizing you, it may be very challenging to be self-compassionate because you don't even know where to start from, and it becomes a muscle that really needs to be worked at. So I definitely think some people will have it very challenging, especially those that have a very poor self-image about themselves. People who feel very negative about themselves to begin with, they don't know how to be compassionate to themselves because all they're doing from a young age is criticizing themselves. For example, if somebody has a very bad self-image of the way their body is, let's say they're very obese or they're very skinny or they're perfect and they're still not happy with themselves, they're going to constantly feel to themselves, well, look at me. No matter how much I try to gain weight or no matter how much I try to lose weight, nothing fits me. Everybody looks down on me. I'm like such a pig. And if you're constantly with that mindset, it's going to be very challenging to accept yourself for who you are, because everything in your world is going to revolve around that particular negative flaw that you have in yourself. So I feel like definitely people will have a big challenge with being compassionate to themselves. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's very difficult to be loving and kind to yourself. And is it attainable? Absolutely. You can achieve it. You can definitely, work on a way to start loving yourself more. And there will be moments in your life, even when you say to yourself or whoever is watching, if you say, you know what, I really am neglecting myself. I really feel like I don't give myself enough love and enough compassion, and I want to start working on that. You may be doing well for the next few days, and then you're going to come and hit a bump where something triggers you. And again, you're going to be very self-critical, and that's okay. Because just with everything else, it's something that needs to be worked on. And it may even take you years until you really start to fully and truly be compassionate and loving to yourself. So I definitely feel like it's attainable, but it takes work.
Yeah, it's a daily action. It's something that you do daily, even if it really feels awkward. And I can definitely relate to that because when I started first doing practice of self-compassion and doing kind things to myself, that felt strange. And some people may perceive that as selfishness and being selfish. But really, self-compassion is about self-care, not indulgence of yourself. By
Saying no to other people, I feel is also self-compassionate sometimes.
Right. Right. And it's really by taking care of yourself, you are able to better take care of others. So I don't find it selfish at all. I just find it that it's important to remember and be compassion to yourself one day at a time.
True.
So with that said, how can someone maintain the self-compassion practice for a long term? Because we know it's hard.
I think back to what we said before, if you start journaling, and that's something that you do on it, like if daily is very difficult, then do it at least every other day. But it has to be something that you do every single, like just like we wake up, we brush our teeth, we go to bed, we brush our teeth, we make sure we eat. We make sure we take showers. Like, it's something that we make sure we do. It has to be something that we're making sure that we do. Journaling, put it somewhere where you can see it. If it means putting it by your nightstand, making sure there's a pen next to it so that you don't become, oh, I don't see I have a pen. Okay, so I'll do it tomorrow. Making sure you set your alarm clock. If you want to, let's say, start walking every day for half hour a day, that's a form of self-compassion, because you're making time for yourself to do that, self-awareness talk like we discussed before. That has to be something that you put schedule time to do it. Because if we don't set that as part of our to-do list and we don't put that on our alarm clock, life will take over. We're always going to have excuses. We're always going to say we're busy, and it's just not going to happen. So in order for us to achieve it, we have to make sure that we're on top of it. And also surrounding ourselves with positive influences.
Yes.
Okay, so if you know that every time you talk with this and that person, it puts you in a mood of overcritical or down, then you have to put a boundary. You have to talk to those people who will uplift you, who are going to motivate you, who are going to boost you up. Because no matter how much you're going to say, I'm going to work on my self-compassion, but then you're going to have a conversation with a friend or a family member who is going to put you down or who is going to make you feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That exercise that we were talking about is going to go down the drain, because all of a sudden that critical inner voice, that harsh inner voice is going to kick in. And instead of practicing self-compassion, you're going to be practicing self-doubt. You're going to be practicing, you're going to hear the bad voices. You're going to start feeling depressed and anxious, and it's going to be very hard to achieve.
It's such an excellent advice, because this is really true. A lot of us just hear that other people influencing, which enhances our judgment of ourselves. So I really find that setting small, achievable goals, regularly reviewing your progress, and really keeping track of what you're doing, even if it's just once a week to begin with, and then you just enhance that and do it more. It's a journey. It's an everyday step.
Yeah.
And every step counts. Every small step towards your self-compassion makes really a big difference. So
Yes.
before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement to our listeners?
I think we have to celebrate ourselves and our milestones. If this is something that you want to work on and work towards achieving, celebrate it. Every time you would have acted differently in a certain situation and you stopped yourself and you realized that, hey, I acted differently, instead of being so upset about it, instead of, being so harsh to myself, I actually gave myself the ability to realize that I'm good. I'm still strong. I still have what it takes. Celebrate that. Go get yourself something small, whatever it is. When you start to celebrate and when you start to notice that you are doing better, that's one step to becoming a better version of yourself. And don't internalize what people tell you. Understand that everyone is entitled to their opinions. Just like people don't like the same flavor ice cream, and that's okay. If I like chocolate ice cream and you like vanilla ice cream, you're not going to be upset at me for liking vanilla or chocolate. You like what you like. Understand that people's opinions of you don't make you who you are. It's not you. It's just their opinion of you.
Right.
And when you don't internalize what people think of you, you're going to start to be more loving and kind to yourself. And like I said before, we pay a lot of money for therapy, for doctors, for life coaches, as we should, because if we need to do that. But if we start to work on monitoring our health right now and allowing things that don't really matter not indulge us in ways which it shouldn't, it's going to keep us healthier. It's going to keep us away from requiring to seek mental health, because your own best advocate is you yourself. When you yourself are kinder to yourself, when you yourself are more mindful about the way your inner voices talk about you, you're going to be a more confident person, a more loving person, a person who's going to be, you're going to be youthful, because all those wrinkles and all those stresses that we go through, they age us. But
Yeah.
when we start to look at things and we smile rather than be, frowning and upset and worried, we're going to actually prolong our life and be less sick. And I think that is in itself worth more money.
Absolutely. And I want to remind everyone that self-compassion is a journey. It's about progress, not perfection. So
I
be
love that.
gentle with yourself and recognize that every step you make towards self-compassion is valuable. You are worthy of kindness and care just as much as everyone else. Keep practicing and be patient with yourself. You've got it.
Love it. Thank you
Thank,
so much. This was so important.
thank you so much, Yocheved, for sharing your wisdom and insights today. I was really looking forward for this, and I'm so enlightened by our conversation.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. This was really, really special. I have to go back and jot down all the books that you recommended because I mean, this is amazing. I want to start reading those books.
Yeah, you should. You should definitely. Thank you so much for the listeners for tuning in with us. And we hope that you find today's session helpful. Don't forget to practice self-compassion and join us next Monday for another inspiring program. Until our educational journey crosses again, always remember that learning is a gateway to a bright future. Have a great day.
Bye.